Sat Chit Ananda. In Sanskrit, this represents truth, consciousness, and bliss. Some consider it to be Brahman, or absolute reality, or realizing wholeness with all existence. Let's relate this over to Tuesday's video, in which we discussed, to a certain degree, some of the important aspects from the book You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza, in which he states to be happy with yourself in the present moment while maintaining a dream of your future is a grand recipe for manifestation. When you feel so whole that you no longer care whether it will happen, that's when amazing things materialize before your eyes. I've learned that being whole is the perfect state of creation. I've seen this time and time again in witnessing true healings in people all over the world. They feel so complete that they no longer want, no longer feel lack, and no longer try to do it themselves. They let go. And to their amazement, something greater than they are responds, and they laugh at the simplicity of the process. Sat Chit Ananda. Truth, consciousness, bliss. Now, as mentioned throughout our discussions, one of my favorite words, Ananda, which means bliss, is represented in the word anandamide. Anandamide is a neurotransmitter, and taken from the Sanskrit word ananda, which means bliss. Anandamide was the first endocannabinoid to be discovered. It participates in the body's endocannabinoid system by binding to cannabinoid receptors, the same receptors that the psychoactive compound THC in cannabis acts on. Anandamide is found in nearly all tissues in a wide range of animals. Anandamide has been found in plants, including small amounts in chocolate. Now, anandamide, this neurotransmitter, is released while we're in flow states. It elevates mood, it relieves pain, and it has also been proven to amplify lateral thinking, which is the ability to link disparate ideas together. In alchemy, we refer to this as the marriage of the red king and the white queen, the inward reconciliation. It is a symbolic representation of what goes on inside. As a person experiences flow, and there's many degrees of flow, as they go deeper into the flow, they experience Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness, bliss. Now, divergent thinking can be looked at as seeing things from many different perspectives, having many different ideas. Convergent thinking is coming up with a single well-established answer to perhaps a challenge that we might be experiencing. And lateral thinking is the combination of the two. We could say thinking outside the box, being in harmony within with divergent and convergent thinking, which happens automatically while we're in flow, thus bringing us to outside of the box, non-linear, we could say unconventional approaches to solving challenges that a person has. Innovation, creative expression as an artist, and performing at levels that are aligned with representing the absolute reality of truth, consciousness, and bliss at the same time. Now, in the Upanishads, we will find a Sanskrit expression, Neti, Neti, which is not this, or not this, not that, which as a result of working with this has been very helpful on my journey, and I will provide an example of how we can relate this to our creative projects, our tasks, the things that we do each day, so we can experience flow to higher degrees and maintain the flow, thus expressing creatively to bring forth our entrepreneurial innovation, artistic expressions, and any other form of distinct creative expressions, which, as we have been discussing all throughout, we want to discover within ourselves what we truly love and allow that to express as a way of life. Sat Chit Ananda. Now, there's a book that I've been going through. It's called The Essence of Self-Realization by Swami Kriyananda. And I pulled this quote here to describe and weave it into our conversation. So he says, there are two ways of approaching God in nature. One is to separate the Lord from his manifestations. Neti Neti is the saying in India, not this, not that. Something of that consciousness there must be, lest one become trapped in attachment to form. The other way is to behold the Lord manifested everywhere, referring to iti iti, everything is. Now this reminds me a lot of one of my favorite quotes from the Kabbalion. Everything is and isn't at the same time. The divine paradox, which if a person starts to overthink it, gets overly conceptual about it, they may find themselves becoming confused. This is a state of being. This is a philosophy to be understood experientially. Everything is and isn't at the same time. Now, he also said the first way, neti neti, may be too austere for most devotees. The second way is much sweeter. Best of all is a combination of both. Now, when I saw this morning, I really resonated with it because I found on my journey, I don't like to do things one way or another. I appreciate nuance, varying degrees, and I like combinations, ratios. So let's go a little deeper into this. And by the way, Swami Kriyananda was one of the disciples of Paramahansa Yogananda. And if you're ever in California, I recommend going to the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine in Pacific Palisades. I definitely feel the elevated Anandamide when I'm there, as well as the Self-Realization Fellowship in Encinitas. So, neti neti, look at the different aspects of our lives in which we have been identified with to reveal, I am not this, I am not that. So we could do this in a meditation. One of the ways that I work with this is I close my eyes, breathe deeply, inhaling and exhaling. And as I go deeper into meditation, I observe what I'm identifying with, and I recognize I am not. For example, I am not this challenge. It does not define me. I'm transcendent to definition, and thus I am not definition. As a matter of fact, I am not thought. There is not fact. Who is this voice that is aware? I am not that voice, nor am I the sensation of this body. I am, and I'm not that I am. And then what I find is I get into a stillness, and I remain in that stillness or that awareness for around 20 minutes. And if thoughts or any kind of associations or identifications pop up, I run through that or a similar sequence, and I remain there for 20 minutes. And so after this, when I open up my eyes, I go into the mental state of truth. I am this. I am also that. This is referred to as Tattvam Asi. Thou art that. The loving relationship between the individual aspects and the absolute. Or as we say in our Neville Goddard conversations, I am that in imagination. So to summarize, there is awareness and awareness of that which I say I am too, both consciously and unconsciously, which reveals my reality, and the great work continues. So we actually get better at doing this through meditation. So it's recommended then to have a meditation practice. For me, I've been practicing meditation since 2008, and I work with more of a Vipassana style meditation. What I found by working with meditation, it's easier for me to observe my thoughts, and more specifically put in regards to what we're discussing here, observe that I am identifying with these thoughts, identifying with certain thinking patterns. I am identifying with certain beliefs, my body, the experiences, and so forth. And as a result, I'm able to depolarize myself. We've been discussing this. Depolarizing ourselves in relation to certain aspects in the environment, in our experience, in relation to our thoughts, by recognizing we are transcendent to the thoughts. And speaking of, I did a discussion of transmuting fear into courage. I'll put a link in the description to that video. In the Kabbalion, it says, opposites are identical in nature. Light and darkness are poles of the same thing, with many degrees between them. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Spirit and matter are but the two poles of the same thing. They show that the all and the many are the same, the difference being merely a matter of degree. Likewise, principle and principles. Now, as I work with meditation and maintaining my flow, this makes even more sense. Because when we go back here, anandamide amplifies lateral thinking, which is a harmony of divergent and convergent thinking, thus bringing forth the ability to link disparate ideas together. Thus, it does not confuse me how light and dark are two poles of the same thing, that spirit and matter are but the two poles of the same thing. So what we find is when a person has deep identification with certain thinking patterns that create unnecessary conflict in their mind in relation to who they are, others, environment, etc., they're unable to understand how everything is and isn't at the same time. They get stuck on one way of doing things or another. As a result of being stuck on one way of doing things or another, a lot of times they end up overthinking. And so thus they don't represent what was brought up here. And let's read the quote again from Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. To be happy with yourself in the present moment while maintaining a dream of your future is a grand recipe for manifestation. When you feel so whole that you no longer care whether it happens, that's when amazing things materialize before your eyes. What may appear in the earlier stages of the journey, as it did with me, as a contradiction, at least it did for me, is now reconciled as understanding. I say, okay, the journey and the destination are one. What I recognize is that I'm already whole and complete right now. I recognize this through Neti, by letting go of all thinking patterns and bring myself into pure awareness. And from that pure awareness, I recognize that I'm one with everything. Outer is an expression of the inner. And then what I find is my attention automatically goes on what is in harmony and in contribution to my vision. So I find within myself, I recalibrate back into focus. And so following a meditation practice like Vipassana, although a person might not see immediate benefits, they'll start to notice this happening more so, the inward reconciliation occurring. And if needed, if a person is overthinking, we can apply Neti. I am not this, I am not that, I am not my thoughts, I am not the body, I am not the sensations in the body. And it's recommended to do this when you're sitting down somewhere. Interesting story. And by the way, athletes and even those that have experienced certain traumatic situations report this. In 2010, I was in a car accident, and this happened automatically. What I noticed is that everything went in slow motion, and I didn't hear, touch, or feel anything. And I saw the impact of my car and the other car and the glass shattering and the airbags popping out. And I felt so detached to the experience. And I noticed a heightened sense of nuanced awareness. So I knew what to do to protect myself. It happened automatically. And I remember getting out of the car and there was smoke everywhere. The other person's car was on fire. He was totally fine. My car was totally written off. His car was totally written off. And the tow truck driver said, if I had only hit 1 inch in a different direction, I would have been seriously hurt. And so I ended up walking out of that experience. And just for like the next week, I was a little bit sore and I had this seatbelt mark that was running across my chest. And so thus there are experiences where it happens automatically. And we have the ability to practice this on the day-to-day journey with our projects, our performances, our tasks, so that we can bring ourselves into a nice center. And from that center, we can apply what we talked about in our Neville Goddard conversation a few weeks ago. I'll put a link in the description. Surrender to the vision realized. And by the way, there are many discussions on YouTube of people sharing how they work with this. This is my experience. And I find that my way of doing it works perfectly for my lifestyle. So experiential learning, we can apply this for things like challenging activities that engage physical, mental, and emotional aspects. We can apply it to artistic or innovative expressions, the entrepreneurial journey, athletic performances, and so forth. Let's talk about how to apply it in relation to the flow elements, which we discussed in the flow series. I'll put a link in the description to the series if you haven't seen it. Clear goals at an abstract and granular level. So you decide on the goal, the vision, whatever it is. Now, as we're going through the experiences of the task, the project, what we're working on, we have immediate reporting and feedback. And when we're working with this particular information in this video, we want a relationship with intuition as well as our emotions. We want to be deep in the feeling of what we're doing, deeply engaged and present on the activity, whatever it is. And if we're doing something that is a puzzle or challenging activities or artistic innovative expressions, theater, dance, we experience perhaps challenge as well as the cultivation of skill, the sweet spot. I noted it here as ananda, between challenge and skill, the bliss between challenge and skill. We genuinely want to be there and we enjoy the challenge. And you can develop the nuanced sensitivity to feel the anandamide. You can feel when you're in flow. Now, also, here's where there is a big opportunity. If a person finds themselves getting reactive, stressed out, overthinking, they can apply Neti. Take a moment, maybe 5 minutes. As you get better at with practice, you'll be able to do it instantaneously. But maybe in the earlier stages, it could take a bit of time. The key is to catch yourself if your flow is about to be broken and give yourself a moment to let go of those thinking patterns. Then, either consciously or you'll find yourself automatically focusing on what you love in relation to the experiences. So maybe an artist is working on their painting and they're deep in the flow. And maybe they start thinking about something in relation to their past or something that they're dealing with. And they start to feel stressed. Now they feel like they have lost their inspiration. They can stop and detach from the thinking processes and bring themselves into awareness. And then from there, focus on what they love about their painting. Or maybe they would imagine someone experiencing their artwork as they share it. And so then they'll experience inspiration. And then express from the vision realized. And by the way, I discussed this in a process which I included in that same Neville Goddard discussion. I'll put a link in the description to it. Surrender to the vision realized. Now, if a person finds it extremely challenging to the point where they don't experience ananda while doing this, then it's important to reflect on your thinking patterns in regards to what you're doing. Maybe it's your beliefs. Maybe it's how you interpret it. Maybe it's the perspective. That provides an opportunity to identify what we are unconsciously saying I am to, doing the subconscious mind work. And as a person makes peace or reconciles certain thinking patterns and forms core beliefs in relation to their project, their task, themselves, and I recommend The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I'll put a link in the description to the almost 2-hour video I've done on it. What they'll notice is that they'll be able to work with this process a lot easier. And so thus we're harmonizing both Neti Neti and Iti Iti. For some individuals, it could be one way or another. And I found for myself it was a combination. And I also find with a lot of people that I work with, it happens to be a combination. And so if you find too much stress, overwhelm in regards to the activities that we're working on, we can apply this process and bring ourselves back into the flow again. What we'll then notice is that actions and awareness become one. Distractions are excluded from consciousness, fear, doubt, and indecision taper away. We may even notice time distortion. Time seems to go by. And then the person and the activity becomes autotelic, as referred to in flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, or the stage of involution, as referred to in the Kabbalion. And we can relate this over to our discussion today as Sat Chit Ananda. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and further assimilate this understanding so that we can apply it on the day-to-day journey to bringing forth our visions, our goals, our definite chief aims, by working with this information at a ratio that is in harmony with how we truly are. Because I believe truth, consciousness, and bliss is actually how we truly are. You could say, I realize a heightened sensitivity of reconciliation of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual on the day-to-day journey. Thus, the information from the 5 sensory experience in regards to physical, mental, and emotional is guiding me to discover, encourage, and express my bliss in my creative expression, in my entrepreneurial endeavors, in my service to others. And as I do this, I experience lateral thinking, thus bringing forth creative solutions to seeming problems and challenges, further facilitating the understanding that thou art that which I am in imagination and expresses through me as a flow-based journey to realizing my vision. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.